This is the remotely operated vehicle that put an end to the race against time. The Odysseus 6K found debris on the ocean floor, ending a 3-day multinational search to find 5 people missing in a capsule designed to plunge into the depths.
The debris is consistent with a catastrophic implosion of the vessel.
The U.S. Coast Guard says it found 5 major pieces of the Titan. It doesn't know when the sub imploded, but it lost contact with its mother ship an hour and 45 minutes after it began its dive to the Titanic wreck Sunday morning. The Coast Guard was notified 8 hours later.
We've had sonar buoys in the water nearly continuously and have not detected any catastrophic events when those sonar buoys have been in the water.
And those banging sounds picked up by a Canadian aircraft providing hope of life, now thought to have no connection to the debris field. The company that owns the Titan says it believes all souls on board were killed.
PH is a wonderful man, very upbeat. He's a good friend.
For Larry Daly, all of this is personal. He dove the Titanic himself 20 years ago. His mentor was on board the Titan, French explorer Paul-Henri Nargeolet, known as Mr. Titanic.
He's more knowledge in this field than anyone I know. He's been there, done it all. He's probably got more T-shirts in his closet than anybody.
A 2017 interview makes it clear Nargeolet was clearly aware of the risks.
Stuck on the bottom, you can survive for a while because you can stay about 4 or 5 days on the bottom, which not help very much because if nobody can help you.
British billionaire Hamish Harding had flown to space and visited the South Pole.
He's the quintessential British explorer. He's very much an Englishman. He is very outgoing, very friendly, very personable.
We need to look at the perspective of women first, not just men.
Pakistani businessman Shahzada Dawood, seen here speaking at the United Nations, took the trip with his son, Suleiman, just 19.
We have our control screen here.
And Stockton Rush, the CEO of OceanGate, which owns the Titan. In 2018, dozens of scientists penned a letter to Rush outlining safety concerns with his experimental approach. The man behind it all, now a victim of his own creation.
Kayla, there's just so much here we simply don't know.
Yeah, Adrienne, there are still so many questions about exactly what happened, when, how, and why. The U.S. Coast Guard says some of the teams that have been working on this have those questions as well. It will continue its remote operations of the seafloor to try to get some more information here. But beyond that, people will be wondering about the safety and regulation of this kind of exploration, Adrienne.
All right, Kayla Hounsell in St. John's tonight. Thank you. So some good questions from Kayla there about what remains unknown about what happened in the North Atlantic. Crucially, what happened when and why. That's why Tom Detweiler is here. Tom led the team that discovered the Titanic in '85, was a friend of Paul-Henri Nargeolet. So Tom, you have to be exhausted in addition to grieving. I suspect you have a lot of questions too, but can you help us understand something? When do you think something went wrong, and why do you think that?
Well, the submarine was communicating on a 15-minute schedule, and they had one communication that was normal, and then communications went away. And I think it was shortly after the one successful communication that the hull imploded. The reason I think that is that the submarine has a beacon on it which the ship talks to, and that's how they figure out the position of the submarine. And that's normally independent of the sub's systems. So even if the power shut down in the sub, usually the beacon will still work. So the fact that that went away at the same time that communications went away made me think almost immediately that it was an implosion and that beacon was damaged.
Tom, as I understand it, are you talking about a time frame during the descent?
Yes, the descent is the most dangerous part for a submersible. constantly increasing the pressure on the hull. And so that's when things going to fail. If you make it to your dive, the maximum depth that you're going to go to, you're generally okay at that point. You can conduct the rest of the dive with no problem.
And from what we know of the debris field, when you look at what was recovered, what does that suggest to you about what happened?
Well, the two hemispheres, one at each end of the cylinder, which made up the hull, were blown off and found in separate debris fields. And I think that indicates that you had a very sudden collapse of that cylinder in the middle, which then popped those off the ends and deposited them on the bottom.
Terrible. Tom Detweiler, we really appreciate your insight tonight.
You're welcome.